All right, we are back here on this show, and it's time for topic number 3, live from the NYC. Even though we are going to Pittsburgh for this topic, and Zach, you know, Mike Tomlin came out and called the quarterback battle incomplete, which clearly it is. And obviously, we saw the preseason game, we saw the O line and how terrible that looked. So the question that we had presented: what is the bigger concern, the Steelers O line or the quarterback play?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And to be honest with you, Lil, I think both of them are pretty big concerns, right? Mike Tomlin even said it himself. I think you could make a compelling case for either one. First of all, I'll say this. I do think we've gotten to a point where Russell Wilson, I feel pretty confident he's going to be the Steelers quarterback week 1. I know there were some questions about that earlier on in training camp when he got hurt, was dealing with the calf injury, and Fields was getting first team reps, and he looked pretty good for a lot of them. But I just feel like when it comes to Russell Wilson, he's really had the advantage in this quarterback competition ever since he signed in Pittsburgh. I do think a big reason why he decided to go to Pittsburgh to begin with was, I think Tomlin kind of told him, like, look, we envision you being the starter and you could take advantage of this opportunity. But I think the offensive line is pretty concerning too, because let's face it, like for the last 5-6 years, the Steelers just haven't really been able to figure out the offensive line. And I know they've invested some pretty premium assets in those positions, like taking Broderick Jones in the first round, trading up to get him, by the way. And this year taking the kid Fontenot out of Washington. But Broderick Jones did not look good in that preseason game. That's a concern if I'm a Steelers fan. The fact that he didn't even start last year as a first round pick, I just thought that was a dumb decision on the Steelers' part, but maybe it just turns out like he might not be as good as he is or as he was supposed to be. The center position, I still think, is a question mark. I like the kid, Zach Frazier from West Virginia. I think he could have a promising future, but relying on a second-round pick to start at center right away, I think that's a risky proposition. And also the kid Herbig, he got hurt. He's going to be out for a little bit. So already dealing with injuries on the offensive line. But what I find interesting, Will, is we've said it many times on this show, like Russell Wilson is just not a mobile quarterback. He cannot move now like he was able to one point earlier in his career in Seattle. And I almost think that the Steelers having these offensive line problems could almost be a blessing in disguise for a guy like Justin Fields, because I just think he's more equipped to play behind an offensive line with questions over Russell Wilson. And I'm just sticking with my prediction that, okay, I think Russell Wilson's probably going to be the Steelers starter to open up the season, but it's going to be a very thin leash. And ultimately, I do expect to see Justin Fields out there sooner rather than later, especially if Pittsburgh struggles early. It's a very manageable schedule, I think, to start. They will take on the Falcons on the road. They'll go to Denver, and then they'll host the Chargers. That they should go 2-1 in that stretch, but I'm really not confident that they will. So I think both of them are pretty big concerns, but I think the offensive line is a bigger concern because I think them being so bad could ultimately be what leads to the Steelers making a change at quarterback. And ultimately, I do think they are better suited with Fields out there compared to Russ.
Yeah, man. I think good points were made. I think for me, the offensive line is definitely an issue. We know that. We see the injuries going down. Herbig is going to be out for the year. That's a starting center. Troy Fontenot, he should be back week 1, but he's dealing with an injury. So continuity may be a little bit of a swing. You know, a lot of rookies is probably going to be starting. I believe I think they're going to have like 2 rookies on their line to start it. Yeah. So, you know, that's obviously something that's going to have to develop. But, you know, from the same retrospect, you know, Arthur Smith, his offense really thrives when the running game is thriving. Jalen Warren hasn't been playing. We expect to see him week 1 as well. So that should look better. So I really want to talk about the quarterback. See, I'm going to go quarterback play, mainly because I want to talk about them. And I do think ultimately there's going to be a issue there. It's funny because both Wilson and Fields, they wanted to go to Pittsburgh. They wanted to be here. They wanted to get hit. Okay, this is what they asked for. Okay, they were so hypnotized by Mike Tomlin. Can you dig it? That they wanted to come here without any assurance. Maybe Wilson got maybe he did get insurance that he was going to have the job, but Fields didn't, especially when Wilson signed there first. But he still wanted to come here because can you dig it? Motivated him to want to come here. Okay, and I get it. That's one of my favorite lines of all time. You know, I named my station my business off of Can You Dig It? Okay, Can You Dig Sports Radio? Can you dig it? I get it. Okay, when you have a figure that's that's out here powerful with the voice. Okay, can you dig it? Yeah, I can dig it. I want to play for you, Mike Tomlin. No, you ruined your careers, bruh. You ended your careers. Phils, I'm sorry to break it to you, bruh. Your career is over. Wilson, I'm definitely sorry to break it to you. Your career is definitely over. Phils, it may be hope for you. I'm not going to call your career over, but it's not looking good. But Wilson, your career, done. Finito. Bye-bye. Not for long, NFL. That's what it stands for. Okay. And the reason why I say that is for a multitude of reasons, right? I'm not here to just get clicks. Okay, I'm here to break it down so you can understand what I've been preaching for the last couple of years when talking about these very Steelers. Okay, and I feel like my premise is always the same, but my delivery is different, and I just create more content with this topic, right? Because you alluded to it. The Steelers are built like a mom and pop shop. They are. I agree with you, Zach. They are built like that. Okay, their philosophies is outdated. Yeah, sure. They upgraded at OC because they had the worst OC in the NFL. So anything was an upgrade. They could have hired me. Upgrade. Okay. Matt Canada is not that dude. We saw him with those weapons, and everybody want to talk about Tannehill. Okay, yeah, that was years ago, right? In NFL terms, years ago. Okay, not now. And we saw he had all those weapons in the world, and guess what? Had a bottom tier offense. That's who you want to develop, Fields. That's who you want to develop, Wilson. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we all know that Mike Tomlin is very conservative. We know that. So when you are conservative, a lot of games are probably going to be close because you're not like Dan Campbell willing to gamble and go for it and end the game at halftime. So when you're conservative and you have just enough competent quarterback play, the games are going to be close. And believe it or not, the Steelers have won close games over the last couple of years. In fact, last year they had a 9-2 record, okay, in close games. And that was because Kenny Pickett, even though he's trash, he has a little, fourth quarter, wake up, the game is on type of flow, and they were 9-2. However, when you talk about Wilson and Fields, they were actually 30th and 32 in success rate in the fourth quarter. Okay, this is not Wilson from Seattle. He's not a fourth quarter guy anymore. Fields has never been a fourth quarter guy. So when you have a coach that coaches conservative, okay, and the game is tight, do you really trust Fields to win you the game in the fourth quarter? Has he shown that already? No, he hasn't. Do you trust, Wilson in this day and age to deliver in the fourth quarter? Probably not. So I don't think this is a good fit, period. Don't get me started with the O-line. The O-line is a mess too. Okay. So at the end of the day, I think Wilson and Fields, even though can you dig it? I want to come here. They probably ended their careers because we saw what happened to Kenny Pickett. We saw what happened to Mitch Trubisky. They were never good. We know that. But at the end of the day, if you could give them a shot, you would have the right coaches on the staff to give them a shot to be good. Okay. Now they probably wasn't good, but you didn't give them a shot to be good. So I don't think the same thing is happening here with this coaching staff. And one more thing before I send over this rock back to you, Zach. I do want to give credit where credit is due. I'm not really big into the mainstream media because, we are new media. I got to support what we on. Okay. But Colin Cowherd is one of the first mainstream media heads that I've heard say what I've been saying for the last 4 to 5 years, which is Mike Tomlin has to be held accountable. Everybody want to go with the name calling because nobody want to sit here and debate facts with me because they know I will sweep them. Okay? Cut. Get out of here. I got the stats right here. You don't want to see me. Nobody wants to come on this mic and debate me with Mike Tomlin. Off of stats, off of facts, you can't win. The only thing you can say to me is, Lil, you a Mike Tomlin hater. Clip. Here's this clip. Here's that clip. When you said that clip and you said this clip, that's the only thing you can say. Okay, or bring somebody else into the equation and try to compare their resume to his. But strictly talking Mike Tomlin, that's not a debate that you can win against me because the evidence has shown that he gets a pass from criticisms, from firings. Andy Reid got fired, bruh. And he might just be challenging Belichick for the greatest coach of all time. Okay? Bill Belichick, the greatest of all time, got fired, bruh. Okay? Phil Jackson got fired, bruh. Or he retired. One of the two. He might retire. Right?
Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll got fired, bruh. Okay? Mike Vrabel, you talk about a variable. The math is not mathing. Okay? So the fact that they gave this guy an extension without even proving that he could develop one of these two guys is absolute abomination to the Steelers fans who were known for winning. Okay? And that's where I'll leave it for right now.
But Will, you do know Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, right?
That's literally what these guys are gonna tell me when they try to debate me. And the same thing. Never had a losing season. Well, did you win in the playoffs in the last 6 years? Zach, I never heard nothing like this in my life. Normally, as a coach, okay, if this was the NBA, he would have been gone. Because the NBA, don't get me wrong, the NBA definitely don't play with coaches because it's a players' league. So, if you don't win in the NBA, they'll get rid of your behind immediately. In the NFL, same thing, but you do get a little bit more leeway. Not 6 years, bro. Not 6 years. That's unheard of.
No doubt. I think you made some good points. And for the record, I don't disagree. I was the only one on our show last week that didn't have Tomlin ranked in the top 10. And that was simply because if you haven't won a playoff game for that long, then you don't deserve a spot on the list. It's that simple. 7 years, it's just not good enough. And I understand the argument of, since Ben Roethlisberger retired, he hasn't had good quarterbacks play and he's made the most out of a bad situation. Well, a few responses to that. Number one, I know that in the last few years of Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers didn't have the guy that's going to be the Hall of Famer that was winning Super Bowls for them. But I also think you saw flashes of Big Ben that he still had something left in him. The fact that they made the playoffs the last year, I thought was a great reflection of them and how in waiting games, it's funny what you brought up the stat about close games. That's not something that has only been the case this past year. I think it's like the last 3 or 4 years. I'll look at the numbers, but the Steelers have been very good in close games under Mike Tomlin. And I think Ben Roethlisberger had a lot to do with that, especially his last few years. So I think Tomlin, I know Matt Canada was bad, and I believe Ben's last year was Matt Canada's first year. Before Matt Canada, they had Randy Fichtner, who was just as bad, if not worse. He was terrible too. Really, the last good offensive coordinator this team had was Todd Haley, who him and Tomlin and him and Roethlisberger just didn't really match, so they got rid of him. But I just think Tomlin should be held accountable for that quarterback situation being so poor because, as you said, he's the one who hires the coordinators and those hires were not good. And he just hasn't really been able to get the most out of whichever quarterback was on his roster, whether it was Pickett, whether it was Trubisky, whether it was the last few years of Big Ben. And it's hard to have confidence that he is going to be able to do the opposite with either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. I think we're on the same page. Both of us are pretty down on Russ. We don't think he has a lot left. Fields, I won't completely shut the door yet, which brings me to a couple last points. This Ayuk situation, I still don't really know what's going to happen. I guess gun to my head right now, I would predict that he's going to be back in San Francisco. You've had some talks, some rumblings over the course of the last few days that they're close to getting a contract extension done, but this saga has been going on for so long that it's hard to really have any concrete evidence. I do wonder what this team would be like if they bring in Ayuk and they play a mobile quarterback in Fields that maybe could do a little bit more behind a pretty spotty offensive line. So that's one thought I have. The other ones too are, I'm wondering, is the Steelers quarterback next year currently on the roster? I think that's a very hard question to answer just because you don't really know what's up with Russ or Fields. We could definitely agree it's not going to be Russell Wilson, but Fields is still a mystery to me because even though the situation isn't great, it is definitely better than what he was doing in Chicago. And if you add Ayuk, maybe he could be able to take advantage of it. Who knows? And with the offensive line, too, the Steelers have actually let go of some offensive linemen. There are two names that come to mind. Kevin Dotson, who is now on the Rams, they cut him, And Sean McVay turned him into one of the better offensive linemen in the league last year. He's a consistent starter for the Rams. And also Kendrick Green, a guy that was a draft bust for the Steelers. He's now on the Houston Texans, and he had a very good last year. Good year last year. He's now one of their starting offensive linemen. So it's not even like Mike Tomlin is getting the most out of his offensive linemen. There are guys that are leaving the Steelers and are having success elsewhere, which is another big reason why that's a big concern for me.
Yeah, a couple of things, right? So there's definitely some more ammunition I have in my gun to fire off here with this topic, especially with you opening up Pandora's box, right? So I do want to come back to the Ayuk situation in a second. I do want to talk about this point to really back up what I've started the show with, or what I started this topic with, which is that Fields and Wilson's careers are done. The reason why I say that, right, especially when you start off with Fields, right, because you're like, oh, he's still young, second stop. Do we remember that this dude was available to be had, and it took a long time for him to get traded for, and he got traded for a ham sandwich? That showed us his value around the league, that teams don't value this guy like that. Literally, the Vikings could have had him. And I know this division thing, but if he wanted to go there, he would probably would have ended up there because of the market, right? The Raiders could have had him. Literally. I mean, Gardner Minshew got named the starter. And I understand the coordination and the chemistry, but I'm saying they could have had him. It shows his value around the market. He got traded for a ham sandwich and some sunflower seeds. Okay. So if he doesn't look good this year, that could only plummet, you would assume, right? I don't think that would make it go up. So his career is probably done if it doesn't pan out. Now, maybe if he doesn't play at all, maybe it may not be done, because it's like, he was on the bench all year. Let's see what he has. But if he does play and he doesn't look good because the O-line stinks, or he's just not good, then that's going to be reflective on him and how we perceive him. So that's why I say his career is done. Okay. Number
I'll
two,
counter that, though. I just wanted to say, like, I'm not saying he's definitely going to have success here. Like, I do think the Bears made the right decision taking Caleb Williams and moving on from Fields. But at the same time, like, I just don't think I think the situation in Chicago was so bad that I'm not ready to just write him off. And I don't think this situation in Pittsburgh is especially great, even without Ayuk, or if they bring in Ayuk too. But it's just like, I don't know. I'm not ready to call his career over. Like, I think that's a little extreme.
Perception is everything around the league. Now, if he gets a Geno Smith opportunity where he's on somebody's bench, because I don't think if he does not look good this year, okay, barring that he plays, he's going to be on somebody's bench. So that's what I mean by career is over. Like, he's going to be on somebody's bench. It's probably going to take an injury or a terrible situation for him to get another opportunity to be a starter, because that's how perception is. We think Trey Lance is not good because he wasn't good, early on in his career. But that doesn't mean he's not good. I don't still think he's good. But you get my point. Perception, because of what we saw. Jordan Love, the perception was, oh, he didn't dress. He's not good. Well, we were wrong there. He actually is good. And he might win an MVP, right? Perception is everything. And Geno Smith was on somebody's bench for 10 years, even though he always had the talent. Perception kept him on the bench for 10 years until he got an opportunity because Wilson requested a trade. So perception will have you, if he doesn't look good, that he's not one of them ones. And we need to look elsewhere. And I would prefer to have him as my backup quarterback in case my starter goes down. So that's what I mean. With Wilson, he's lame duck. And look, I'm not going to put too much emphasis on his ability or inability not to move in the pocket, because I still think he can scramble and improvise and extend plays, based on his improvisation ability. Not the same that it was in his prime, but I still think people are looking way too much into that preseason game. In regards to that, this guy was coming off a calf injury, bro. So I'm not really going to, look at that preseason game in particular and be like, oh, he was a lame duck. He just came off a calf injury. Okay, so I'm not going to go there. But he's still not the same guy as far as movement. If you want movement as somebody that can extend the drive, then that would be Justin Fields, because he know how to get out of trouble. That's the only thing he could do, respectfully, is run. And I hate to box him into that category of being a running quarterback, but I mean, come on, bro. I mean, he missed those in the preseason game. It was one shot play. I understand the receiver may have, stopped just a tad second, but that still was an uncatchable ball. Like, he just got to be more accurate and more consistent. And that's why I think they made the mistake falling for the can you dig it to come and play for Mike Tomlin because he's very popular and not assessing the football situation and be like, okay, this team could actually make me look good. The Vikings have the best wide receiver in the league. Ryan Pose, I want to go to the Vikings. He gave you that option. He said, yo, wherever you want to go, I'll honor that. Okay, you have the best wide receiver in the league in Jefferson. Why didn't you go there? You know?
So do you think there's any shot Fields is the Steelers quarterback week 1 next season?
Next season, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't even
Well,
know
you
how
just
to
called his
answer.
career over, bro. I mean,
I don't know how to answer. If he doesn't, I mean, look,
no, the answer is, didn't you just say his career was over?
now
So
his
isn't the
career
answer
might
no?
be over. But yeah, if he survives, and it's funny, let's say they bench him, right? They bench him, they're gonna allow him to walk. That's possible, right? Or they may bring him back because of the Steelers. You know how that goes, Zach. But just because you're starting doesn't make you, your career. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a graveyard, bro. Like his career was over when he was playing for the Bears. Okay, well, I won't say that. But his career was in shambles when he was playing for the Bears, basically. Okay, because the Bears didn't have a great situation. So it could kind of be like that, you know. But I don't know about next year. All I know is that this year, week 1, the Steelers have issues. Me personally, I would start Fields week 1 because of that improvision ability and ability to scramble and be a dual threat guy, especially when you look at that offensive line. You may need that guy in there. But I don't think that's happening. I don't see a world where that happens because I know that the Steelers are very outdated in their philosophy and ways of going about their business. You know, Zach, I do want to talk about Ayuk for a second.
Before you do, I'll just
Go ahead.
respond to that quickly. I agree. I would start Fields, but I do think it's going to be Russ. However, he'll have a very short leash. I'm telling you, Will, I know it's early. Like the season doesn't start until another couple weeks, but one game I already have circled on my calendar that I'm really looking forward to is week number 2. The Steelers are going on the road to Denver. Russell Wilson, assume, is going to be playing his former team. If the Steelers lose week 1 to the Falcons, we just did a whole segment on them saying how talented they are, how we think they should both win the NFC South. If they lose that game and then they go to Denver, go up against Russell Wilson's former team, against a rookie quarterback, and they lose that game and start 0-2, I could see a scenario where Fields is under center for them sooner rather than later, although I do think Russ will start the season.
I can see that too. I can see that too. I mean, that's winnable game. Say what you want. Like, I understand I'm not big on the Steelers this year, but the Broncos is a winnable game. I understand Bo Nix look good, but that's a winnable game. That's a game you should win. If you're trying to tell me that Mike Tomlin is a top, 5 coach or a top 3, a lot of people have him 3 in the league, then that's a game that they should win. The Falcons included into that conversation, even though the Falcons are building something. Maybe that game is more 50-50, but you know, 2-0 should still be a possibility. But
And then you have the Chargers week 3 at home, which isn't too tough either.
yeah, literally. I mean, we'll see what happens with them. I do want to talk about the Ayuk joint to close off here because there's the narrative, and I believe by Gaze, he painted this picture that the Steelers have the leverage here. And I disagree with that. I think the 49ers do. I always thought they did, even though the wind is blowing. Yes, they do. But even before the wind was blowing there, I thought they had the leverage because they don't got to trade this guy. This guy's under contract. Okay. But I think right now they're negotiating to keep him. However, there was this narrative that the Steelers have the leverage. They don't. They need Brandon Ayuk. They can't sit here and play hardball and not try to trade for that guy. They need that guy. Like, if I was a defensive coordinator, I will double Pickens and force Van Jefferson to beat me. I'll live with that. If I can double up on Pickens, who's the other guy? Who's going to beat me? Keith Sweat. Nobody. Not going to happen. So, yeah, if I'm the Steelers, I will be pounding on the table, doing everything I can to get Ayuk. The problem is that it may not work out for you in a lot of ways because you may have to give into the 49ers demands by giving away Pickens in the deal, by giving away Pat Freiermuth in the deal. And that don't even make sense on either side because if you're the 49ers, you're losing the best play out the two. And if you're the Steelers, the main reason that you wanted a wide receiver is to pair him with another wide receiver. And if you lose a tight end, then you don't have no tight end. So I think the Steelers are in a little bit of a bond here, but I don't agree with that take that, they have the leverage. I don't think they do.
Do you think Ayuk watched their preseason game on Saturday? Because I know he wasn't there. The 49ers played on Sunday. Do you think he watched that game and he watched Russ and Fields struggle and he's like, maybe I'm having some second thoughts about wanting to go here? And then that was a thought that came to mind for me.
I think he did, but then he heard Mike Tomlin at the post game. Can you dig it? Oh yeah, I'm gonna come to the Steelers now. Because that's what it is. Player relations, player relatable. That's where we are in this society. When you have a players coach like Mike Tomlin, who is decorated perception, right? We talk about perception on this topic. Perception is that Mike Tomlin is still an elite coach, top 3 in the NFL, and guys want to play for that guy. That's actually a big thing. It's very big in the NFL. And guys don't really prioritize winning. Because I think the Browns is a better situation as far as the ability to win something than the Steelers are. But, that's just me.
Not to mention the other 2 teams in that division too. And yeah, this is coming out. It's going to be coming on 7 years of this team not winning a playoff game. It's sad. But, again, I didn't have Tomlin ranked in my top 10 coaches last week. And a big reason for that is he just hasn't won enough in the playoffs. And if you're an elite coach, you got to do better than not winning a playoff game in 7 years. You just got to do better. Coordinator hires have to be better. And I like Arthur Smith, but I just don't know if I love the fit with him and Russell Wilson. I don't see that fit working.
I agree.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.